Okay, so you're looking to move to Orlando and you've heard some myths about what it's like living in Florida, what it's like living in Orlando. Well, in this video, I'm going to break apart 7 myths that I heard before I moved here, and also that people have asked me when it comes to moving here that is completely not true at all. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give you the #1 myth I've heard that could really make or break you wanting to move here, especially if you think it's true when in actuality it's not. Also, joining me today, if you're new to the channel, is my partner in crime, Nikolai. He's my youngest and the newest addition to the family, and he's going to help me walk through this. And hopefully he's going to be calm through this whole video so we can try and get this done and give you the 7 myths. But we're going to see how it goes. So getting into the first myth I've heard when it comes to moving to Orlando, and that is that it's only a place for tourists. Completely not true. Look, Orlando has a lot to offer. And don't get me wrong, I think many of us who, if it's our first time coming to Orlando, we probably come for Disney World or Universal or just any other vacation. Hey, maybe some of you come here for work. There's a lot of conventions that happen here in Orlando. A lot of companies work here and people travel here throughout the year for events and things like that. Look, there's more to Orlando than just being a temporary city. Obviously, tourism is one of the biggest industries here in Orlando. It's massive. So I'm not joking that obviously there's a lot of tourism here, but it's not just a city of tourism. I mean, when I moved here, I realized that there is a massive amount of people that live here permanently year round, and there's great communities to be found here. There's things that happen that only locals know about, right? Like there's side attractions that are aside from like the main tourist hubs and all this stuff. Heck, like I said, heading to Plant City, Dino Land, son loves that place. You can get a year pass and all that stuff. It's great. And it's things like that you don't realize until you move here that they're just not true. Like people think like, oh, it's only for tourists. Like there's only even when it comes to stuff to do here, oh, there's only things to do for tourism. Like those are the only things to have fun with. It's not true at all. There are great public schools that are coming up. I mean, sure, like maybe like 10 years ago, I would agree with you. But as it stands right now, Orlando is an ever-growing city, and it's really becoming one of those major tech cities in Florida and the East Coast. Like they're really trying to make this place a tech hub. So a lot of companies that are in the tech field, they're coming to Orlando. Now, the second thing I hear about Orlando is that it's not safe. People have looked at whether, like shootings or maybe just in general, you're looking this up and you're like, oh, it's the Florida man. You're typing in, you're like, oh man, yeah, the Florida man, the crazy people. Look, there's crazy people everywhere in the world. Sure, Florida definitely has some weird situations. And I think if you haven't been to Florida, lived in Florida, you probably looked up like Florida man does this or Florida woman, and you find like these crazy stories. That can be said for any state, mind you, but Florida definitely has a bad rap for that. I will tell you, Florida, this is a saying I heard, and it does have some truth to it. Florida is a sunny state for shady people. Completely true. Like there's a lot of people here that just want to take advantage of you. Obviously, that's not something I do. So obviously what we do here on the team is I help people like yourselves relocate to Orlando, Florida. I'm a licensed real estate agent, and I love helping you with your real estate needs and things of that sort. I've made a lot of mistakes when I moved here in my family, and I strive to make sure that you don't make those same mistakes yourself. Doing videos like this is what I do best to make sure that you are taken care of when it comes to moving here. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of stressful things. So if you need help in that process, the number is popping up below. You can call, text, email our team, or heck, if you want to jump to the front of the line and get straight on my calendar to talk to me one-on-one, there's a Zoom call down below. You can schedule, fill out some information, and be sent straight to the line and book my calendar to where we can kind of sit down, talk about your situation. I don't care if it's now, 2 years in the future. It's what I love to do, and I do this every single day, day in and day out, so I absolutely love it. But, to be said, there are a lot of shady people here in Florida, and you have to make sure you're careful with it. So there is some truth to this, for sure. In terms of like bad communities and that every community like has meth heads and things like that, oh, not at all. I will tell you that if you don't know where you're going to move to, that could destroy you. I mean, when we started looking at properties out here, right? Like I was already in real estate. I kind of had an idea of like what we wanted and all things like that. But when you start looking, like one block could be great and then one block over could be terrible. And you have to make sure that you got the right city down. You know where you want to live. And you looking up the public crime data. You understand, hey, what's going on? What areas are upcoming? Like, Davenport, right? In Polk County, the northern ends of Polk County, they're just outside of Orlando. Polk County has a bad rep, right? Like a lot of people say there's a lot of crime going on there, but it's changing. That's where all the new construction is heading. So you have to be aware of where things are changing and what areas are going up and down. Like it always changes, right? And I think Orlando's changing for the better. I mean, it used to be a lot worse crime ratings than, let's say, Tampa, right? The sister city on the other side of Florida. But it's actually now pretty even when it comes to crime in a good way. Like it actually has dropped down a little bit. So it's really hard to say what's going to happen in the next couple of years. But I will tell you, it's still a safe city. It's still a great city. You just have to make sure you choose the right area where you live, especially if you have kids, right? Like, you don't want to live in a bad area. The last thing you need is to live in a bad area to where you're just going to be destroying yourself mentally and hopefully not physically. The third myth I have heard when it comes to Orlando is that it's just alligators everywhere, right? It's Florida. Everyone just assumes that there's alligators everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's alligators. And people are like, why would you want to live near the alligators? Now, don't get me wrong. There are situations like, well, it's back in like 2010 or something like that, where Disney, like a 2-year-old got, I think it was killed or severely injured at the Disney park at, I think it was Epcot, because they went too close to the pond in the center of the lake and an alligator came out of the water and attacked. Look, alligators they do exist here. They are a part of Florida and they are important to the environment, but making sure you understand where you should live and shouldn't live. I will tell you that in the right area, like the suburbs, if you don't have any lakes nearby or ponds or things like that, unless there's a hurricane where flooding happens and they relocate during that time, obviously because water levels rise, you're going to be okay. Like, you're not going to be in a situation where you're having to look at alligators every day. But look, you are going to see them. But I've also met people who live here in Orlando for years, and they're like, I really don't see alligators at all. It's because they live in the city or they live in a suburb community, right? Like, there are certain situations where you're just not going to find them. But sure, you're not going to be swimming in random lakes and ponds. Like, come on. This is not the area to be doing that at all. So you have to understand that there is a level of safety to it, to where alligators are everywhere, but it doesn't mean you're going to see them every day. And it also doesn't mean, like, don't let your kids, like, there's a level of common sense to this, right? If you don't understand how to be safe when you go, like, on hikes and things like that or camping, ask someone who's local, ask someone who understands what they're doing to kind of help you through that process so you understand. Because sure, alligators are everywhere, but they're not really everywhere. So if you're just living in the suburbs or you're not living in an area with a waterway or anything like that, you're going to be okay. You're not really going to see them, right? But hey, maybe you're like me and you get obsessed with it and you want to go to like nature preserves and things like that. You want to see them in action. So hey, we all have our level of craziness that we love to endure. All right. And I kind of already talked about this a little bit in the first point, but this is a main myth in itself, and that the only thing to do in Orlando is theme parks. That's the only thing there is to do. There's nothing else to do. It's either theme parks, Universal, Disney, Peppa Pig Land, Legoland, SeaWorld. That's the only thing you can do for fun here in Orlando. And that is so far from the truth. So far from the truth. When we initially took our visit out here to Orlando, sure, you do the fun things with the kids. It's great that we're close to all these theme parks. But at the same time, like, you start to look around, you start to realize all of the fun things that there are to do here in Orlando. So we found ourselves going to Wonderworks, which is this awesome little museum for kids. And it was so much fun. Like, it's like everything's crazy. It's funny. Like, there's cool, like, how, like physics and how things work. And they tie that into games and things like that. It's super cool. Kids loved it. We spent an entire day there. And we finished off with like a magician show and a pizza party and things like that. It was super fun. Right? A lot of fun. I recommend everyone to go there and check it out. Obviously, you can head to NASA. You have the Space Museum. You can go, like, there's a ton of side attractions. I talked about Dino Land heading towards Tampa on the 4. Got in Plant City, you got Dino Land. A lot of fun. If your kids are obsessed with dinosaurs like mine are, like, they loved it. Really clean, awesome knowledge. They can like dig for fossils there and things like that. It's really cool. They also have real fossils as well, and like a little museum part of it. So there's a lot going on there that I absolutely love. But you also have a lot of other things. Like, there's I don't remember the name of the place, but when you had east from Orlando, there was like a little nature area where they rescue alligators and like different animals, like exotic animals, and they just take care of them. Very nice, sweet family that runs that place for the owners. And it's really cool because we have to learn about Native American culture there. We got to see them feed alligators. We have to go on a little boat tour around the alligators, learn more about the wildlife in Florida and things like that. It's super cool. And I was really happy to kind of get to experience that, get to do more with the kids. But at the same time, it's not just Orlando. Like, within, just over an hour, you're at the beach. Like, whether it's the Atlantic Ocean or Clearwater Beach, like, you can go and take a weekend away, right, with the kids or the family. And there's so much to do. And you also have downtown Orlando. There's a lot of cool restaurants down there and bars and things like that. Like, there's a lot to do besides theme parks in Orlando. People get so roped up in that, and it's just so not true. So if you're concerned, like, I had to reach out last week from someone who looking to move to Orlando, and their biggest concern was like, is there stuff to do with kids? I'm like, oh my God, like, there's so much to do here outside of, like, I love to go hiking and camping and doing all that stuff, fishing and hunting. I can do that too, right? Like, there's a lot to do here in Central Florida, especially in Orlando, and you're not going that far. I mean, an hour might be a lot to some of you, but to me, like, it's not that bad. And within that hour radius, you have so much to do and see, and museums and roadside stuff and festival. And we're not even talking about the festivals that happen every year, right? It's a city. A lot of festivals, a lot of events going on, right? So there's so much to offer here that it's not just theme parks and things like that. It's completely not true. All right, the fifth myth I've heard is that it's always hot and humid in Orlando. The weather never changes. It's always just miserable. Now, it's Florida. Humidity, always here, right? I will tell you, late spring, summer, early fall, miserable, right? It's hot, it's humid, it's hurricane season, completely true. But if you've never been to, I don't know why I ran into this. A lot of people have never been to Florida during the winter months, and it's gorgeous. The humidity is like the perfect level, right? To where you're not drying and getting that cracked skin. Hey, I might be who I am, but I promise you, I get some ashy elbows. You can ask my wife. She always laughs at me for it, right? So like the humidity is great. The weather's in the 70s, but it does get cold, right? Like during January, like you will see some 40s. It happens. Like this last winter, it got cold in Florida for a little bit. People freaked out. Me coming from New York, I laugh because I'm like, oh my God, this isn't cold. This is beautiful. But hey, so most of the year, yeah, sure, it's hot and humid, but there's that winter months, like, you will see why it's awesome. Like it is great, but at the same time, it gets tourist heavy. So it's a good and a bad to it. But no, it's not hot and humid all year round. Humidity, always there, right? Worse in the summer, but it's always present. The heat, not really. I mean, even during the summer, like if it gets over 100, major heat wave. Most of the time, low 90s, high 80s, it's just really humid. But it rains every day as well. But during the winter months, beautiful. Very little rain, most times than not, right? It's just perfect weather. I mean, I can't even get over how awesome it is. Sure, coming from California and stuff like that, where it's like all sunny all year round, I prefer Florida weather. As weird as that sounds, I just do. California's overrated to me. I don't understand it. You know, it's just not something for me. But obviously, if you love snow, you're not going to get that in Florida. I mean, the Panhandle might get ice storms every now and then, but not often. All right. The sixth myth I've heard is that the restaurants in Orlando are expensive, not worth it, or there's just no variety in food. That's completely not true. A lot of people are concerned when it comes to food culture, right? Especially if you're coming from New York City. Everyone loves San Diego and stuff like that. If you're on the West Coast when it comes to Mexican food and cuisine. But, there's a lot of Puerto Rican and Cuban culture and just also a lot of other culture. Especially if you're coming from the Northeast. Fish is heavy here. I love it, right? Orlando has a lot of variety in food. And just because it's in the South doesn't mean you only have to eat Southern, right? There's a lot of options. And don't just look at the mainstream places. You got to look at those mom and pop restaurants. And the one thing I love about Florida is because small business is still alive here. You can find so many backdoor mom and pop restaurants that just like make the best food like grandma used to make, right? And that's what I love about Orlando. It's like, you can go to expensive restaurants and they're basic like every big city, right? Especially if you're coming from New York City, I get it, right? But it's also one of those places where you can find variety in food. Just, hey, it might be different from where you're from, and you have to kind of be a little open to trying new things. If you're like me, like I like chicken finger subs and stuff like that, hey, Publix has chicken finger subs. Might not be like New York, but hey, it is what it is. The cool thing is, because a lot of people are moving here, you're starting to see more shops and cuisine. People are bringing their culture from other states and the cuisine to Orlando. So a lot going on and really cool like that. It's not just expensive restaurants and terrible food. There's actually a lot of variety that's coming back to Orlando. All right, and the seventh myth, as you can see, I am now baby free. He couldn't make it. He got grumpy. So that's all right. We're going to finish this without him, even though he was such a trooper for the majority of the video. So the seventh myth I've heard is that there's no affordable housing. It's expensive. Can't find anything. Look, everyone has a different opinion of this, depending where you're coming from. Look, I get it. Most Americans don't make over 6 figures a year, right? So is it affordable? No. I mean, if you look at the last time, I think nothing in America is affordable at this point. I think we all understand like the egg shortage, everything that's going on. It's nuts, right? There's so much going on right now that just isn't affordable. It's crazy and it's not okay. But if you're willing to, the one thing I love about Orlando and Florida in general is if you're willing to drive, right? You're willing to go farther from the city a little bit, you can find something that's in your budget. And I can tell you right now, this isn't just about purchasing. It's rent. Rents are crazy high too. Personally, the rental market is more competitive than purchasing right now in Orlando. It's crazy at the time of recording this video. It's crazy. And rents have definitely skyrocketed. I mean, the center of the city, you can pay $3,000 a month for a house, right? Just a small little dinky place. And it's no different. I mean, the average one bedroom in the city of Orlando is going to run you about $1,800 a month for one bedroom, right? It's crazy. You can find cheaper than that, but that's like where the average sits in the city part of it. When you leave the city, you might see as low as $1,000 for a one bed, but you still end up paying like $2,000 a month minimum for a house. It's crazy, and it's when a lot of people are feeling that pressure. I mean, I've had conversations with people recently regarding like using Section 8 income to qualify on purchasing a house. They might have Social Security income, or they need to fix their credit, and like I get it. This is a conversation I have a lot, but the one thing I will tell you is I call it a myth, because it's not that there's not affordable housing. it's a situation where you can find it, but you're going to have to give up something, like either one less bedroom or less yard space, or maybe you need to drive a little bit from the city. That's what we had to do. And when we first moved here, we ended up settling, heading west on the 4 because we couldn't afford the top neighborhoods in Orlando. It is what it is. And unfortunately, it is what we had to do, but we were able to find something that's still like I went from a 2-bedroom condo in San Diego at the time to we went and built a 5-bed, 3-bath home, right? That's crazy. And now everyone might not be in that situation, but we could have purchased the same size home for that price that we built that home for, roughly at the time, maybe a little bit less actually. And right now the average home around Orlando is $360,000, but you can absolutely find cheaper than that when you leave outside the city. So there's still opportunity here. And I always tell people who are concerned about that, it's like, look, you might have to give something up and get a little bit of pain when you first move here, but the biggest thing is to get established in a good neighborhood and be happy. And from there, you can always step up. The one thing I love about Orlando is the opportunity when it comes to homes and stuff like that. You just got to think a little bit creative and a little bit smart. And that's what I said. That's what me and my team love to do. And I'll drop the number down below again. You can call, text, email, or like I said, if you want to jump the head of the line, pick a spot in my calendar. There's a Zoom link down below. Fill out some questions and get that booked. And it's a free consultation. It doesn't cost anything. It's just a conversation to see if we're even a fit to work together. But I just want to make sure that you have all the information you do when it comes to moving out here. I mean, even people are like, Cameron, I'm not purchasing for another year. I don't care. My biggest thing is getting you the information. I know I made a lot of mistakes when our family moved out here, and I do my best to be in a position to give you all the information so you don't find yourself in that spot, in a tough spot to where you move here and you just hate it, right? Because I think Orlando's a great city. We have to make sure you want it, and once you know you want to live here and you want to move here, that's where we come in to help you through that process, create that plan, and make sure you have a better life when you get here, which I think everyone wants when they get here. So hope you got value in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Ow. It's like scratching the heck out of me. What are you doing, dude? You're teething. Show him your teeth. He's not having it. He's not going to like video in the future. I can already tell. Dude, what are you looking at? He's looking at something. I don't know what he's looking at.